Somebody will think Saida is the millionaire now from the thumbnail. I claim it be using a la. I claim it. Hey, assalamu alaikum. How are you, sis? Welcome back. And if you are new to the channel, do well to subscribe. In my last video, I took you through some of the challenges that we have to regularly deal with as women based on the choices that we make. I talked about the social stigma that women, especially stay-at-home moms, have had to put up with. In a nutshell, a woman who chooses to have children and then a career is termed neglectful. And the one who chooses to have children and stay home with them is lazy, according to a good number of people. Yeah, human beings are the most complicated species, they say. And then we went ahead to emphasize the need for women to have their own money, as having a level of financial independence brings empowerment, better security for her and her offspring, a reasonable amount of control over her time. It creates new possibilities, fulfillment of goals, emergency fund, and it prepares her for the unforeseen. No wonder Claire Booth Lewis once said that a woman's best protection is a little money of her own. And talking about preparedness for the unforeseen, I remember telling the story of Fulan, who was living comfortably with her husband and was instructed by her husband not to work. But Fulan was a born entrepreneur who was raised by her entrepreneur mother. And so, subconsciously, her mind had been programmed with the entrepreneur mindset. Good enough, her husband eventually gave her the permission to start a grocery business from home, and then she enjoyed Allah's benevolence as her business was blessed by Allah Al-Ghani until Allah tested her husband on this dark day. Abu Fulan went to his store that morning like every hardworking man will do. Like I mentioned in my last video, he was into the sales of car spare parts. And as usual, all through his stay in his store, he was transacting business and striking good deals. He closed from work that evening, boarded a taxi, eager to go home to the warm embrace of his wife and sons. Abu Fulan got home, and while he was eating one of his favorite meals, prepared by his affectionate wife, he received a call that will put his family in financial woes. Abu Fulan, Emma Gbese, ṣọ́ọ̀bù yín ti gbaná o, was all he was hearing from his phone. At first, he assumed that it was a wrong number that called him, but the person did call his name. He redialed the number and the person confirmed what he had the first time, that his store was suddenly on fire and that all the replacement parts, worth millions of naira, that he had in his store was burnt down without traces. Who set my store ablaze was all he could ask. Nobody, oh, your shop just decided to explode on its own, oh, was all the explanation that he got. Does this not sound like one of those scenarios that only happens in Nigerian movies to you? We all wish that it was just a movie. Abu Fulan was in great shock. He was unconsoled. His wife and kids were suddenly distressed, confused, and needed answers from Abu Fulan. But Abu Fulan could not utter a word. His wife had to call on people around. See, when a full-fledged grown man with his own ego is seen crying like a child, you should know that a disaster has hit him really hard. Some good men had to accompany him back to his store. I was not there, but from what we were told, 2 grown men had to hold him, helping him to cross to the other side of the road where his shop was. Imagine, Abu somebody. Perhaps if you live in Lagos, you might probably have heard about the fire incident that happened in Owode Oneri along Mile 12 early last year. Yeah, that was it. People lost fortunes. Abu Fulan and his neighbor traders had to struggle to trace the spot that their store was erected on, because all they could see was fire ashes. It was a disaster. Many stores was affected and his was not left out, unfortunately. In fact, all the stores in his row vanished with the fire, together with newly bought cars of people who took their cars in for some servicing. How he was supposed to account for all the loss including the money of customers that had been deposited to his account as part payment, was almost impossible. We got to know that the explosion was as a result of faulty electrical outlets or perhaps some worn-out electrical wiring. Funny enough, the electrical spark happened in another store, which eventually affected Ings. For a long time, Fulan had to single-handedly finance the family, children's school fees, feeding, and they also had a child who wanted to write the common entrance examination, and a lot was asked to sort out because Abu Fulan only recently stocked his store before the fire incidents. You know, if not for Iman, there are some challenges that one will face, and Shaitan will play with your mind to believe that it is not ordinary. But the truth is, not every problem or disaster is sihir. Not taking note of potential dangers and greediness on the part of some building contractors who are only concerned about amassing wealth, thereby using inferior building supplies, can lead to many of these problems. So I started wondering how the family would have coped in that trying time if Fulan did not take the bold step towards financial self-reliance. May we not depend on anyone for our daily bread beside Allah. Sis, say Amen. I will advise myself and every woman out there to seek financial literacy so as to be informed on how to stay on track to achieve a level of financial stability. It is not as easy as it sounds, I know, but we can try our best and let Qadar do its thing. But it is good to give it your best shot and have utmost reliance in Allah. And just like I said in the part 1 of this video, if the office setting is not your thing, or perhaps you tried your best to get a job which is not forthcoming, or maybe you are so busy with being a mom of toddlers and getting a job will be very difficult to manage, you can make research on lucrative business ideas that you can start from home. Just think of that one thing that you can do that will solve people's problem. That one thing that when you start doing it, you will not burn out or feel pressured. So that even if you will not be making enough money from it for the first few months, your passion for it will be the driving force. See, there are many Muslim women breaking barriers and making millions from the comfort of their homes, silently. If you know, you know. At times, I laugh at people's ignorance when some people see a woman in hijab, especially black jilbab, black niqab, she hardly talks, she is always indoors. They just assume straight up that she is a vulnerable woman who has no financial capabilities. She must be poor. She is subjugated. She has no voice and only surviving from her husband's income. And if we are surviving on our husband's income, it is our right to spend from his income. But things have gone really bad. Ayeti Dorikodo. Grammarians in the house, translate it for me, Biko. It is unfortunate that the abnormal has become the norm and the normal has become strange. So as I was saying, there are many Muslim women who are indoors and their bank account is fatter than some women who have to be in the office round the clock, Monday to Friday, all through the year. It is not by the glitters that you see. Let the account balance speak. The only difference between the low-key, wealthy Muslim woman and the flamboyant woman is that the Muslimah understands the temporary nature of this life. She understands that she must tread with caution and that no matter the level of success attained, she remains under the sovereign of His Excellency, her husband. Not to say that her husband has right over her wealth, for where? But she continues to tone down, maintaining modesty and simplicity for the sake of Allah. A lady once said that she had a Nikobi in her compound, which they call Eleha. Please, who even invented that name, Eleha? Someone that is forcefully eating. Am I translating it right? I think we need to look into that name that they call Muslim women in the southwestern part of Nigeria. Anyway, according to her, the Muslimah was a nice neighbor and they got talking. This woman telling the story is a non-Muslim. So she said one day her children had to stay with the Muslim sis when they got back from school because she was still at work, and good enough, the Muslim sis had children of her kids' age. And then when she arrived from work, she had to go into the sister's apartment for the first time to get her kids. The sis said from afar, Come in, come in. I am busy in my office. Your kids are fine. They are eating with my kids. And the lady was like, office. And then she saw that inside a 4-bedroom apartment, there is a room housing designer bags, accessories, jewelries, clothing of the recent fashion. And the sis was taking pictures of the clothes and, uploading them online. Those are what she sells. The other lady said she was shocked because what the Muslim lady had in the room for sale was not the regular brands. And then she said, Eleha, are you the one selling all these? Your store is so full. And the lady replied saying, this is my business. I am making nothing less than so amount of money monthly. And she, the narrator, was like, shift, let me faint. That is almost double of my salary. Well, I understand the lady's shock anyway, because I have also been shocked like that some times ago. But before I go on, kindly make sure you are subscribed to this channel if you haven't already subscribed. And please give the video a huge thumbs up, as this will signal to the YouTube algorithm that the content is notch. And share. Let's spread the message across. May Allah honor you as you do. Back to the story. Some time ago, around January 2018, when I was still an Amaria new bride. After the honeymoon phase was over at my husband's business site in Ogun State, I had to return. I was working in Abeokuta as a den, which was a really long distance from my husband's business site. So we had to get an apartment close to where I worked, so he can always come and return. And then we started looking for an apartment to rent. The agent told us of a newly built apartment behind the university where I worked. And we were like, okay, let's check it out. We got to the building. It was such a decent, newly erected building with about 5 flats in the compound. Really modernized, spacious 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom bungalows in the compound. Very comfy for newlyweds. And I was like, this is it. No going back. I am taking this. And then the agent said I had to see the landlady. She is an alaja like you. You will flow well with her. If someone tells you that the landlady of a newly erected building is an alaja, perhaps what you will think will align with what I thought, that she will be one mommy in her 50s with some golden mecha teeth, living large in one of our numerous buildings. Let me shock you. The agent took us to a face me, I face you compound. I was like, why is this man branching up and down now? Because I never imagined that the landlady will be living in such a house. And then I saw a woman in her prime, seated on a tiny wooden chair, bathing a little boy in a big bowl that we call bath or basia. And then the man said, that is the landlady. I was confused, so we went to the sis. I think she should be in her 30s. She was an hijabi. We did exchange pleasantries. Then she started talking in the capacity of the house owner, asking what we do for a living and stuff. I couldn't hide my curiosity. I said, Madam, sorry, is your husband the landlord of that house? Who are we paying to? And then she said, you are paying to me. I own my house. In a nutshell, we kind of bonded well. And then she told me that the house is 100% ours. She is a rice dealer, and that was her first property. I asked why she was living in a 1-room and parlor apartment where she has to share kitchen and toilets and always have to bath her child outside. She said that she has been living in the house for about 8 years, and that is what her husband can afford. That she has suggested to him that they move to one of the flats that she built. But you know some of our brothers with the ego. So she said that she is willing to stay in the space it provides for her. He was the one that helped her to get the land, built the house, supervising it and all, that she only had to finance it, and that everything is in her name. The house document is in her name, hidden somewhere in our wardrobe. I said, sister, your husband is a good man. I mean, some men will push their wives to buy the land, but in their own name. You know now. She said she is still very amazed with his personality. Let me know what you would do if you were deceased. Will you move out of the face me I face you apartment where you always have to join a queue to use the bathroom and toilet? Or will you be patient and remain in the space your husband can afford when you have a building in your name? I would like to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Well, according to the sis, she has been living there for 8 years. She did not die. Why should she suddenly become uncomfortable because she now have her? Our sisters are Muslimas with the brains, excelling in different facets of life. Alhamdulillah for Islam, which gives women a lot of rights and protection, some of which are the rights we have to own our own wealth, the right to inherit and be inherited. It is not a bad idea that we die leaving valuables behind that can be inherited by our children. Some women have created generational wealth. A lot of women are doing well for themselves with the little they can gather. Don't overstretch yourself, sis. Just do your best. I once listened to a lecture by our esteemed Sheikh, Dr. Sharafuddin. He said there are some stores in Saudi Arabia, I think Medina and the street of Makkah, if I remember, where you would see men selling gold, as in high value accessories, but it should be boldly written in Arabic that this shop belongs to Balkis bint Abdullah. Just an example. The owners are sometimes women who are stay-at-home moms and running luxurious gold stores, and you will rarely see them in their stores. When you have money, you will be the boss of men. Whether they struggled for their money or they inherited the wealth, may Allah continue to put His barakah. Amen. Some of our mothers and grandmothers also had a level of financial literacy those days. Women sell things from their homes, and people became fond of addressing them by what they sell. For example, you will hear Ìyá ológì ní ilé ọkọ. Perhaps the Ìyá ológì realized on time that she needed a level of financial independence for whatever reasons, whether her husband is responsible or not. Before you know it, Ìyá ológì will start selling omidun. And in her backyard, she might be rearing hens in a cage and making ends meet. We have many of our mothers and grandmothers like that. For example, my grandmother was very popular for her fufu business back in the days. Despite being an illiterate, she was financially oriented. She makes fufu at home and distributes to traders. If you don't know Iyaoba or Nifufu back then in our community, you don't know anybody. And she single-handedly got herself a plot of land in Ikotun, Lagos State, and also single-handedly trained my dad through school to NCE level with her fufu business. My dad will never stop talking about her and singing her praises even in her death. I will wrap it up with the lessons from the seerah of our mother Khadija. Khadija bint Huwaylid was the first wife and the first follower of Prophet Muhammad. She was born to a father who was a successful merchant in the Quraysh tribe in Mecca. He inherited her father's skills at a time in history when society was male-dominant and dangerous. Upon her father's death, she took over the business and traded goods through the primary commerce center at that time, from Mecca to Syria and to Yemen, hiring the most trustworthy men of character to brave the dangerous trade routes. Her business was larger than all the Quraysh trade combined, and it was the most acclaimed with reputation of fair dealings and quality goods. When the prophet started receiving revelation, she stood by him and spent her wealth entirely for Allah's cause. Khadija bint Huwaylid is definitely the true representation of women's empowerment in Islam. Sis, do you know a superhero? If you know a single mother, then you do. Kudos to our sisters who are single moms and the sisters who are married yet alone. You are stronger than you think you are. It is not easy to play mommy and daddy. You are striving and loving for two. She has to have 4 arms, 4 legs, 2 hearts, and also double the love she gives her child. To her child, she is a backbone made of steel and a heart made of gold. It is a lot of work to single-handedly finance oneself, let alone with children. It is twice the work, twice the stress, and twice the tears. There is nothing stronger than a single mom with a wounded heart. Truly, superheroes exist. They are called single mothers. Please remember that Allah sees everything. He knows your fears and hears your cry. A huge reward awaits you for dunya wal akhirah bi-iznillah. Yes, it is twice the stress, twice the tears, and twice the work. But remember that it is also twice the hugs, twice the love, and twice the pride.